If you would not like to be like YouTube famous on the YouTube channel for the Boys and Girls Clubs of King County, please go ahead and just stay on mute for the duration of our conversation today. But otherwise, this is really a conversation. So this is not a hold your questions till the end kind of a day, because we might not get to all your questions. We only have an hour to spend together. So be sure to keep your questions going in the chat box. Come off mute if you feel comfortable. We would love to have those conversations with you. Hillary, I'm going to go ahead and let you continue to admit people who come into the waiting room. If you're able to do that, that would be great. Thanks so much. Great. And I want to recognize we have a few club parents here today. So thank you so much. We have a pretty diverse group. I see a couple members of our board of directors. Thank you for being here. And a whole bunch of our club advisory board members. If you're not familiar with our club advisory boards, these are the armies behind our mission, so to speak. These are amazing volunteers working on behalf of our Boys and Girls Clubs all over King County. So thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. We're also joined again by Senator Claire Wilson. Senator Wilson is the Vice Chair of the Senate Early Learning and K-12 Education Committee, a huge champion for youth, and we're really happy to have you here again today. Great. So let's jump in. We also have a few folks who are newer to the Boys and Girls Clubs. So let me just kind of lay the ground for you a little bit. We have 34 Boys and Girls Clubs across Greater Seattle, and they're all working to help youth and teens reach their highest potential. One of the things that's you'll often hear our board and our volunteers and our staff talking about is our emphasis on being there for those who need us most. And let me tell you, this year, in the year of the pandemic and a reckoning around racial justice, that principle has demanded even more of us, and in particularly for our work around teens. So that's a huge influence in our conversation today. You know, when the schools closed last March, we actually opened our Boys and Girls Clubs the very next morning for all-day programming. Immediately, we were most concerned about children of essential workers having a safe place to continue to stay on track with their schoolwork, whatever that looked like at that moment, and then be able to be kids. You know, we have a lot of fancy jargon around these things, our social and emotional development programming and all of that. But really what it comes down to is a kid got a chance to feel like they were a kid in a Boys and Girls Club in a moment that was pretty scary for our community. So that's what we've been doing since March. The clubs are still open. And of course, that includes programming for teens. So I'm going to stop talking now and pass it off to the experts. So let me introduce you to my two colleagues who are here with me today. And they're going to talk to us more about what the programs are going on for teens. Got a couple people in the waiting room here. Great. So first up, we have Trey Beauchamp. Trey is our Senior Teen Program Director at the Wallingford Boys and Girls Club. And what's really fun about Trey is he actually grew up at the Wallingford Boys and Girls Clubs. Maybe some of you have had a chance to see some of Trey's old basketball photos from his Wallingford days. And of course, now he is working to make sure that all teens have a safe and consistent place in their life, helping to lead those teen programs all over Greater Seattle. So we're really happy to have Trey here today. I think that many people would describe Trey as someone who goes above and beyond for teens, but what's really significant about Trey is that's just Trey. So he is always working to develop programs and mentorship systems that are going to be most relevant to teens in that moment. And so obviously this year, it's been a true gift to have Trey with us on our team. The second person who's joining us here is Melissa Jones. Melissa Jones is the Executive Director of YouthForce. Melissa grew up in Vermont, and she was the first in her family to graduate from college. And pretty soon after that, took on the task of helping other youth reach their full potential. So she's been doing that here with the Boys and Girls Clubs since 2014. And she's also the proud mom of a future club kid named Rory. We're really excited one day to have Rory joining us in the clubs. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I mean, Trey, do you want to kick us off and give us a little bit of an overview about club programming?
Yeah, hi Melissa. Thank you for that introduction. I'd be happy to talk about some of our teen programs. I'm going to focus on three that I think are really important right now that we are kind of doing and have going on. The first is just kind of my work with all of our teen programs, and I work with the 11 other teen directors that are in the King County. And I work with them to make sure their programs are inviting and engaging with our teens that we serve, creating spaces that teens want to be in and want to participate in the programs that we offer. And there's really a lot to be said just about the space that we create for the teens and how they be in. Obviously, with COVID, that looks a little bit different this year. But how do we lay out our teen centers in a way that teens want to spend time in? Is there a place near the books where teens can read? Is there a place for them to hang out with their friends? So even when does gym come into effect? When do we have our gym time planned so that kids can play basketball? Is it right after school, or is it a little bit after so they can have a snack and have more energy to play and be engaged? And so a lot of these are kind of like questions I want to bring to the front of people's minds when they're thinking about their programming with teens and how they want to serve our youth. And the other two parts that I was going to focus on today are Keystone and Youth of the Year, which are two of our premier teen high school programs that we offer here in King County. And Keystone is kind of, or I'll start with Torch Club because that's another one I was going to touch on, which is a middle school version of Keystone. So I'm just going to say that they're kind of the same program, but Torch Club is the kind of prereq for Keystone. And one second, I'm looking for my notes. So Keystone is a leadership and service club that we offer. It is a Boys and Girls Clubs of America program. And all 12 of our sites either run it or are planning to run it. And it's a program that focuses on academic success, career preparation, and community service. Kind of one of the biggest successes we had recently with our Keystone programs in King County was the chance to go to the National Keystone Conference in the 2018-19 school year, which was the first time we'd been in 4 years. So it was a pretty big deal. So the Ballard and Wallingford Keystone clubs got together. They met, all of these high schoolers got together and said, we want to do this, we want to go. And so they wrote a letter together, they all signed it, and they petitioned it to our CEO and said, look, this is why we want to go. This is why we deserve to go, and can we go? Lori loved it, they got to go, but that wasn't an easy task. They had to fundraise to take 15 kids and 3 staff across the country to Orlando, Florida, and they raised all that money on their own. But that's not even the hardest part of it. You also have to do all this work, you have to be engaged in your community, you have to be engaged with your club, and you have to have academic success. Like I said, they had to have a GPA of 3.0 to do this conference, and these were kids that all met those requirements so that they could go. And even as a staff, as an adult, and part of that is over 400 hours of community service that is required to even be eligible to go. And they did all that. And even as a staff, as an adult, it was really one of the most memorable moments of my entire life, getting to go with these kids to Florida and spend that time with them. Even though you have to be in the hallway till 2 a.m. waiting with the kids to make sure they fall asleep and don't sneak out of their rooms, it's still, I wouldn't change it for anything. This year, the conference was virtual. We didn't have one in the 2019 school year, unfortunately, or 2020 school year. And it didn't have quite the same excitement, but it was still an amazing moment for our teens to get together and connect and see that there are kids going through the same thing. I know so many of our kids are looking forward to that chance again this summer or potentially next to get to go back. That's a brief overview. I'd love to answer some questions about Keystone in a little bit, but I also want to talk about Youth of the Year and Youth of the Quarter, because that's another program I'm very passionate about that we do, that all of our sites participate in. And it is a kind of a recognition of our youth who excel above and beyond those requirements for Keystone. And that starts with Youth of the Quarter. And Youth of the Quarter is a kind of a recognition. We actually had it last night, and I think some of you were there. Thank you everyone who attended. It was a really over Zoom, kind of like we are right now. And we just had this chance the kids get to speak, and they have to write a speech that's about 2 minutes, and it's with the prompt, what does the Boys and Girls Club mean to you? And so they all give these powerful movements about, how the Boys and Girls Club have helped them during COVID, and, make friends and a place to feel accepted when they don't feel that way at home, and just all these powerful stories. And then, what comes after that is Youth of the Year, which is kind of the next step up. Everyone who's been a Youth of the Quarter is then eligible to be a Youth of the Year for their club. And that's even a bigger step where they're doing the kind of the same thing, but they're picked to represent their entire club for the entire year. Everyone, they're the one youth for their club. And after that, they go on to the national, or excuse me, that's skipping way too many steps. After the county, they go to state, and after state, they go to regionals, and after regionals, they go to nationals. And along the whole way, they get to meet, new people, celebrities, internship opportunities, scholarship opportunities, and it's really a great moment. And I think and I know we have one coming up in February that I highly recommend you guys come and check out, because I think it'll be a great moment to see these kind of stories unfold through the voices of the teens, which is much better than coming from me. My first year as team director, I got to work with a team who actually won the county youth of the year, and it was an amazing opportunity for us. So we got to go to Olympia, and we met the governor, and she comes back. She's in college right now. She goes to Scripps College in California, and her name is Casey. She comes back and visits her family, and I got to catch up with her last winter. And I asked her, what she thought about Youth of the Year and what she still remembers from it. And she actually said some of the people she competed with at the state level, she still keeps in contact with. She told me that the interviewing skills she learned through doing Youth of the Year has helped her get jobs, helped her all through college. And then even just like the public speaking helped her so much as she's now in college and entering her senior year and becoming part of the workforce. But those are really the three key programs, kind of the basic, just like how do we form our club, how do we run our club, what kind of programs are we offering to serve our youth? Then the next step of that is let's get them engaged in a community through Keystone. And then, Youth of the Year is kind of the icing on top of that. And let's recognize our youth that are going above and beyond to really engage them and reward them for their service to our club and communities. But those are the kind of gist of our programs that we run here in King County for teen stuff.
That is such a great overview. Thank you, Trey. And I know that we have so many supporters of the Boys and Girls Clubs here on the call with us today. So I want to make one point around all of the great programming that you've just heard Trey describe, including all the service learning and career readiness and connection and social bond with other teens. All of that comes at a very, very low cost to families. So all of these teen programs require just a membership fee of $50. And if a family needs support to make that $50 happen, we absolutely can make that happen because of supporters like you who are on the call today. So all of this great stuff, is really a community investment, investing in the future leaders of the community. So just wanted to make sure that we got that point. If you have a question for Trey, go ahead and pop it in the chat while we hear a little bit from Melissa Jones about YouthForce.
Thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Trey. I just want to start by saying, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your lunch break with us today. I know it's not always the most fun thing to do, but we really appreciate it. And I'm excited to be here, really in the presence of such incredible supporters of Boys and Girls Club. So let me also say, I really wish that I had this program growing up. I think it would have made a huge difference in my life. And, learning things that I learned in college versus in high school. So YouthForce really is the youth career development program of the Boys and Girls Club of King County. We offer a unique approach to workforce readiness, and by providing youth ages 15 to 21 from low-income family backgrounds with employment opportunities and career readiness workshops while creating rewarding employment solutions for our local area businesses. Annually, we do serve about 1,000 youth through the events that we put on, through the workshops that we do, through outreach and recruitment, and as well as place over 150 youth in paid internships across King County, which is pretty incredible with a staff of about 7. And so we do this through 3 programs. Our teamwork program, which is a unique partnership with the Seattle Sounders and Seattle Seahawks. It offers entry-level work experience as fan support staff at now Lumen Field during home games. Our career internship program partners with local area Seattle businesses like Alaska Airlines, Bank of America, Thrive Communities, just to name a few. And it provides a professional business setting internship for students who have the ability to work more independently or have potentially held a job or another internship before. And then in tandem with these two internship programs, we have our YouthForce University, which is our career readiness workshops and connection events that youth participate in while they're in their internships. And just a quick story that I wanted to share, which is one that just gets to me. This happened this year. We have this youth, his name is Ivan, and he joined us in 2018. He enrolled into our WIOA program, which stands for Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. It's through the Workforce Development Council. And this program really offers intensive case management, resources, support services, and a work experience, a paid work experience. He participated in one of our summer internships in 2018. He became disengaged after the internship ended, which does happen a lot. No matter how many times you call them, you email them, you text them. And so he became disengaged, and then he went all the way until the spring of 2019 and then re-engaged with us because he needed some support services through our WIOA program, which was fantastic. We were very excited to see him. And we were able to help him with the support that he needed. And then we were able to get him into our teamwork internship, working for the Sounders for the summer of 2019, and has been engaged the whole time since. And fast forward to this summer, and he's had a lot of issues. He became homeless. He was couch surfing for a while. He moved in with his brother to be able to stay afloat and help himself get a job. Our case managers were able to help with a little bit of the rent for him where he was staying. He also was at risk of dropping out of high school. He was also at risk of not getting into a gang, but being involved with some individuals who were in a gang. But this summer, we had this new partnership with Thrive Communities. First year that we've worked with them. They're amazing partners. They're a property management company. And he did a work experience through our WIOA program. And it was a 8-week, 9-week internship in their maintenance department. And the supervisor that he had, his name was Joey, and he was incredible. And he really just took Ivan under his wing and showed him everything that he could do and showed him what the career path could look like and the amount of money that he could make and where he could go. And Joey, I believe, was also a former club kid. So he really wanted to give back, which was exciting. And so he completed his internship in August, and they asked him to apply for a full-time benefited position, and he got it. So he went from being homeless in this environment of COVID, right, to getting a full-time benefited job because somebody cared. Somebody cared to take him under their wing and were able to lift him up. And that's why I do what I do. I love this program, and this is why we do it. So yeah, I really wanted to share that because I think that's really important to understand what this program can do. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Melissa, for sharing and your team behind the scenes. I just want to give people a sense of like what that looks like. So what does it, look like for your team when you're working with a youth? Earlier, you mentioned, you're sending a lot of text message, you're sending a lot of calls and things like that. How do teens these days like to be communicated with, and how many times do you have to communicate with them?
Many, hundreds of times. Text message has really become a thing. If you send an email, it's rare that they respond. They really respond well to text messaging. And honestly, Facebook Messenger during COVID, not really sure why, but that's been a big hit. So yeah, and it takes a lot. I mean, I can tell you, Ivan, when he disengaged with us, my staff was reaching out at least 3 or 4 times a week. And so imagine adding that. That's an email, that's a text message, that's a direct message through Facebook. I mean, there's a lot that goes on there behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Melissa. We have had some action in the chat box, so thank you so much, everyone. Trey, we have quite a few questions about what does this community service component of the teen programming look like in a pandemic?
Yes, I can tell you it's very different than what we've seen in the past from our community service, and it shifted a lot towards more, my Keystone, we did like a PSA video, kind of like telling people to be encouraged and reach out. And just with so many restrictions and kids not feeling comfortable, it's been hard to do a lot of like in-person community service, but we've made a lot of plans for when that feels safe again to bring that back. I know some sites have done like trash pickups and kind of like smaller projects that are able to be done outside. A lot of the community service has shifted from like toy drives and Christmas gift creations to stuff that's like, okay, let's go to the park and clean up, and more simpler stuff than we've done in the past, but still engaging and still a chance for kids to be with their peers. Um, and we had the state Keystone Conference recently that was last week. And one of the community service projects that was kind of offered was like a trash pickup for all the kids kind of get together in their communities and do something that was individual. So it's been a lot more individual community service as opposed to like big group projects, if that kind of answers that question.
Sure. And then we have a question from Brian Townsend that I think both of you would have similar but different answers to. The question is about how you were able to stay connected with youth digitally in both the teen programming in the clubs and in YouthForce. You want to start, Trey?
Sure, yeah. It has been a challenge at the start of the pandemic. It was a little easier because there wasn't as much screen burnout as we're getting now from kids, but we're on Zoom all day, they're in class on Zoom all day, and it's hard to convince a teen to be, okay, you in class all day, oh, cool, now let's get on a call in the afternoon and do it again. But the way we've been able to do that is just really make it fun. And that's just what it comes down to, is right now offering something that the kids want to do and they want to participate in. So, we had a club last Friday that did a Zoom teen late night, which is an event we'd normally hold in the club, and they'd get together and have pizza and hang out and, be kids. But, this time they couldn't do that. So they got into a Zoom chat and they played a game called Among Us. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but it's kind of like a party murder mystery game. And it was a huge success. They ended up having 3 breakout rooms where they had multiple people participating, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of clubs have transitioned their more concrete clubs like Keystone to do their meetings virtually, kind of like what we're doing right now when they get together. And we've also done like a Netflix movie night over their like function to do like a streaming service together type of thing. And a lot of our focus has in the virtual space has shifted to just like, hey, let's connect and really bring that connection back in the time when we can.
That's great. And how about in YouthForce?
Yeah, YouthForce, the youth are already connecting with us through mobile devices. So that was a pretty easy transition for us. The harder part, honestly, was internships, right? Because there were a lot of individuals who did not want to have on-site internships due to COVID. And so that's the area where we really struggled, whether the internship was because of COVID related and they just didn't want other people coming on property, or it was they had a lack of staff because they had to lay people off, or just funding, honestly, to be able to help pay for some of the internships. And so that was a huge hit to us because really our main program is all about internships. And so that was hard. And then getting in with our youth, they're very tech savvy. It's just making sure that they actually have access to the technology. And there's a lot of youth that we work with that don't have access to the technology. They don't have access to Wi-Fi or a stable Wi-Fi connection. And so that's been something that has really changed for us, and making sure that we can get those resources to the youth. And my staff and my team has spent a lot of time looking for resources for these youth during these unprecedented times.
And so maybe that's a great segue, Melissa, because I think a lot of people might have just assumed that, we weren't able to do internships this past summer, but we were. Can you tell us about summer internships last summer? Because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, summer internships last summer, usually, or this past summer, usually we have 150 to about 175. Thankfully, this year we were having about 130, so we were able to keep up with some of that, which was fantastic. But honestly, the reason why that was able to happen was that we were fortunate in that we have clubs to place many of our youth into internships to ensure that they have access to a work experience and could earn some much needed money that they needed for themselves or honestly for their families. A lot of youth do take on internships and jobs to help out their families, especially the youth that we work with. And so last summer, it was just a struggle just to trying to find internships. And then we had to look inward within our own company and organization. And I was very thankful that we were able to do that and be able to place youth in the clubs. And then Thrive Communities stepped up and was like, okay, this is our COVID policy. This is what we're doing. And it really aligned with what BGCKC was doing. And so they really had all the same practices and policies in place. And we were able to have youth on site this summer. They took on 7 youth for the first time, which is huge for a new company to take on 7 youth. That's a lot of commitment. And so it went really smooth. And a shout out to Aaron Yoon, who is our CIP director, because he did an amazing job with making sure that that was a smooth transition for our youth and for our new partner. And so it's just an added element of trying to make sure that you're keeping your staff safe, trying to make sure you're keeping the youth safe. And I never want to have to tell a parent that they got COVID due to our internships. So that is a big burden that I carry with me this year, which is really hard to navigate around. And so we're doing our best to make sure all the companies that we do work with do have protocols in place for COVID. But this summer, a lot of our companies, I would say 6 or 7 of them just, they had to cancel on us just because of the situation that we're in, which is really unfortunate. But thankfully, the clubs we have and the people we serve came through for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a question from Jim about STEM programming. Do either of the programs that the two of you run include STEM programming?
At the individual club levels, I know there are definitely clubs that do like kind of individualized STEM programs. So I know at our Southwest Boys and Girls Club, the team director Tobias there is very engaged in STEM programming and creating those opportunities for his kids at his site. But we need to do a better job of bringing that to a larger community within the Boys and Girls Club, I think.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
We have a note here from Senator Wilson about maybe a connection that we can follow up with. But Senator Wilson said that there is a Washington State Leadership Board, and she sits on the board of this for these teen opportunities as a Senate appointee. So maybe there's some great, connections we can make there.
College as
Yes.
well, and everything's paid. So, from 14 years on up. So as we think about representation, it's just critically important from, there's Youth Leadership Advisory Council with the governor. There's a World Fellows program. There's a Compassion program that works with the Dalai Lama, internship programs that are paid in the Senate. So there's all of these connections that I myself, as a young person with a family from another country, had no idea these existed, nor that there was any support. So let's just make sure that we're connected. So as those opportunities come out, young people know, and that you can pass that out at all the clubs, because that's exactly the kind of connection we need to make. And I'm just pleased to be here today, and thanks.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, so much alignment here with the Boys and Girls Club mission to build good citizens, and these programs are spot on. So thank you. We will definitely follow up with you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there because Gail, thank you for pointing that out about our Ajac program, which is a partnership that we have with the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee that we started last year in our Federal Way EX3 Teen Center. And we call it Manufacturing Academy, and it's a 12-week pre-apprenticeship program that we started with them. And it's amazing. Unfortunately, COVID did end it a little early, our pilot program, but it went so well that we're actually starting our next one next month in January, and then hoping to do another one in the summertime. So we have about 17 youth this time. We had 12 youth in the first pilot program, but now 17 youth, and we work closely with Truman High School and Open Doors. That's right there on site. So we're excited to see where this can go.
Great. Well, and thanks everyone for your questions in the chat. Keep them coming if you have questions about YouthForce or other teen programming that's going on. I just want to take a moment to pause and address all of the great connection that we have been able to hear about continuing for teens in the club. So I myself, I'm a step parent to a 16-year-old. So I know this firsthand, but if not, you've maybe read it in the newspaper. You know, when COVID came into our lives overnight, the social network that is so critical to teen development and their access to their hobbies and their activities just completely evaporated. And we're hearing here today about all of these teen programs that are still operating. So it is rightly a big concern of everyone, including public health officials right now, the concern around isolation and the impact on teen mental health. So we feel very honored and proud that every teen we have either walking through the door today or connecting with us virtually is getting an intervention in that isolation just automatically right away. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing, thanks to Melissa and Trey and their teams and so many others, and really the support of all of you. Like, that's why we're going to keep doing what we're doing. So thank you for that. There was a question from Bob Clough about Youth of the Quarter. Yes, Bob, we just had Youth of the Quarter last night. It was virtual, but let me put a date out there for everyone. February 27th, you're going to hear more about this from us in the weeks to come, but February 27th is going to be the Boys and Girls Clubs of King County Youth of the Year celebration. It will, of course, be online for 1 hour, a 1 hour of packed great programming. And I do encourage you all to attend, because that's when you get to come listen in and meet the teens directly who are participating in the programs that we've been hearing about. Does anyone have a question they'd like to come off mute and ask?
Could I just ask if there's any particular programming for pregnant or parenting adolescents or teens, male and or female? And if that's a population that you see needing services and supports that they may not be getting?
Great question. Yes, we do serve these youth. They are in our WIOA program. Thankfully, our WIOA program is able to provide a lot of those supportive services, but we're always looking for more. And our Southeast Network program, that is also part of the Boys and Girls Club, they definitely serve this population. And so if you have any connections or any resources that you could provide, I would really appreciate that.
So I started my work in the world working with 11 to 21-year-old pregnant and parenting teens. So they have always been a center of my focus and my work. And I'll say that in Working Connections Childcare, you'll see some legislation to make sure they continue to have childcare covered while they're finishing school, as well as not having a work requirement as they move into their workforce, as well as potentially in making sure they have a pathway so we don't keep young people in poverty, that they can move beyond an AA or an AAS and into a BA and beyond. So clearly, again, an issue of equity and programs that used to be available that are not. So just an area of focus for me, and one that, again, as you see things coming forward or needs coming forward or places where we should lift that up, reach out, because it's a critical concern, as well as our LGBTQ youth, so vulnerable young people in many ways that just need additional supports.
That's great. Thank you. And since Melissa Jones, since you referenced our Southeast Network program, I went ahead and put in the chat, we are having another conversation like this with Marty Patu-Jackson, who is our executive director of the Southeast Network program. So that's going to be on January the 12th. So I hope you'll come back and join us for that. Trey and Melissa, I'm hoping we have a few parents on this call with us today. You know, everyone's really concerned about supporting teens right now and these needs around isolation and as the pandemic drags on. What advice do you have right now for families and community members in terms of supporting teens right now?
I think the biggest thing is getting them connected to either services. We've seen a big uptick in depression, emotional, mentally stability. And so our case managers have really worked hard. I remember the first month that we all went on, COVID home duty, however you want to put it. And our case, Jacob, shout out to Jacob, because he literally called everybody on our caseloads once a week, and then emailed twice a week and texted twice a week to all of the youth. That is just to keep them engaged, because so much was happening right in their lives. They were at home. Some of them don't have the safest home situation. Some of them didn't have homes. And so it was really, really important to make sure that we were in constant communication with them for the first 2 to 3 months. And so it's keeping them engaged in somehow, whether it's an activity like Trey was talking about, like having them connected to the club in some way. And the virtual game was a great idea, right? Like, who doesn't want to play a game? So that's the advice that I would give, is just to make sure that they can stay connected in some way to something.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. So much of the work that I've been doing with my Keystone and the advice I've been giving to other team directors with their Keystones and their kids is to just connect and have fun and engage and talk with them and give them a chance to speak with their peers and have that chance to connect with their peers that aren't getting because they're not in school right now. I think there's a lot to be said about community service, but I think there's a lot to be said about self-service and making sure that we're all in a mental state where we can do, where we can serve our community as well. So I would agree where connection and just fun is my biggest one right now, is find those games, find those ways to have fun right now.
And that reminded me, Trey, thank you. And this is really important. A lot of our youth are asking for virtual internships, and kudos to Bank of America for pulling this out. They switched their entire summer internship, which is usually in one of the branches, and they usually take on anywhere from 7 to 10 youth from YouthForce, but they pivoted so fast in making their summer internship, which is nationwide, into a 4-week virtual internship, and paid them for 8 weeks. So hallelujah, Bank of America. That was one of our best internships this summer, and it was incredible. So if other people and other organizations can do that, or if you can even just take on one virtual intern for the summer, whether it's 4 weeks or 8 weeks, that makes a huge difference to provide these, sorry, get a little worked up about it, but to provide these access points and these resources for them. And some of them are really, really in need of money for their families. So a little bit goes a long way. So just something to put out there for anybody who's on this call who has a connection that they may want to say, hey, I think I could do that. It would be wonderful.
That's awesome, Melissa. So what makes a good internship placement? What's a good, does the size of the company matter? Does the locality matter?
No, it matters as long as you have time to engage the youth. If you have time that somebody can engage the youth and make it meaningful, that's what matters.
Okay, great. Any more questions for Trey and Melissa? Got a shout out from Jamie Hummer. That's right. Our team actually here inside the Boys and Girls Club was able to host an intern over the summer from the program. And what was great about this is he's a little bit younger than the rest of us. And so, there's social media stuff. It just changes so quickly. So what's relevant and what's not, he did an analysis of all of our Facebook content and was able to make recommendations to our experienced and professional staff about what is resonating most with our community. So, not explicitly a STEM program either, but certainly a ton of math and analysis going into that project as well. And it made real results in the work that our team is doing. So great reminder on that. Thanks, Jamie. Trey, anything else you'd like to share about Keystone projects? We had a question from Felicia earlier about the types of activities that Keystone and Torch Club are doing. Do you have something that you'd like to share? And I'd be curious too, what are you hoping to get back to? Like when we can rip off these masks and be together in person, what are you hoping to get back to?
I mean, I think the biggest goal for all the kids I work with and all of them is getting back to the conference and working towards that project. That kind of end goal for that is always something they're very excited for. But, getting to that requires, creative fundraising, which we do a lot of, but also just the kind of community service that we do. A big one that's kind of a mix of both of those that we do at the Wallingford Boys and Girls Club. It's called Parents Night Out. And it's actually happens at a lot of our clubs, but it's just a chance where the club is open until 10 for families that want to pay an extra $25, and the kids will watch a movie and work with, or the teens will all plan the activities in the movies and have activities to play, and the parents will get a few extra hours to have a dinner to themselves or have an evening to themselves, and the kids get to have fun with their peers. Gail, I saw a question about the Keystone Conference and what it is, and I would love to talk about it because it's one of my favorite things. So Keystone is a national Boys and Girls Club program, which means it happens at every Boys and Girls Club that serves teens throughout the country, as well as all the military bases throughout the world all military bases have a Boys and Girls Club on them, and the Keystone that operates in them. So all of these clubs will charter, they'll do all the work that requires. So it is a national project, which this year we're going to be focusing on environmental impact and racial justice. So we'll be working on a service project probably in the 2021 part of the school year on, they'll design a project. Last year was on mental health. So our teens got together and we found out at their local high school, in their health center, they didn't have any kind of like mental health material or that was like kind of available. So they created a pamphlet that could be given to the school and kind of used as like a tool that had like resources in it that people could contact if they needed help and stuff like that. So they gave that to the school as something that they could have and provide to other students. And so that was, every year there's a project like that is kind of like a bigger thing. I've told our kids about it and I kind of marinate on what they want to do. And I know other clubs are kind of coming up with an idea of what they want to do with that. But that all works towards going to the national conference, which is a chance for all of these kids to get together and meet each other and do these sort of like leadership trainings and opportunities to grow and meet other leaders throughout the country that can help them become the leaders that they're going to be in the future. It's also just a great time because they get to go to a big hotel in another state and fly with their friends and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it's an experience that like not every youth and their family together had been able to have. So
not to put anyone on the spot, but I know there's a parent who I took two of her kids to, and I would have to imagine they had a pretty great time. So definitely something that is memorable for sure.
Oh, that's great. We had another question. I believe it was from Marty. Nope, I'm sorry. It was from Caroline. Caroline asked if Melissa Jones, if you could talk a little bit more about how the YouthForce program prepares youth for success in their internships and while they're employed. And I'm going to add on to this. Tell us about those virtual, workshops and the pivot that you made this year on that.
Yes, so we had to move all of our workshops to virtual. So we offered them from March all the way until the end of November. And this focuses on career readiness, specifically on resume writing, interview skills, job searching. And we did end up adding an extra one onto social media, just due to everything that was happening with COVID. And so many more people were on social media and posting things that may not be appropriate if you're looking for a job. So we added that in May, I believe, right before summer internships were starting. And with that, so the whole goal is they have their paid internship, right? And that is to give them some work experience to put on their resume. And then alongside of that, they go through all of these career readiness workshops. And when they leave YouthForce, they leave with a updated completed resume with the current work experience that they just had, and with all of the other workshops underneath their belt. So the hope is that they're able to go out and get an entry-level position job after they leave YouthForce. And it's interesting because we do have an array of youth who want to go to community college afterwards. They want to go into the workforce, but they're not exactly sure what career path they want to go down. And some do both, right? Some, work part-time and go to school part-time. So we try to make sure that they are ready for employment and that the barriers that they may have to employment are hopefully taken care of by the time that they leave YouthForce.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Carissa, who I got to sit on one of these sessions with some Keystone kids last week, and it was really impactful, and I even learned a few things. So thank you for that, Carissa. That was really helpful for all of our kids.
Thank you, Trey. Yes, Carissa has done an amazing job with these workshops and made them so interactive, just because, you know, being virtual, and we all know that you get sidetracked with your phone and other things that you're doing. So she's done an incredible job about making sure that they're staying engaged during these workshops. And I heard the Keystone went very well. So thank you for sharing that.
I love the collaboration. And truly, Melissa, this was one of those rare instances where the pandemic helped us innovate into something that could help us reach even more youth. So teens all over King County are eligible to participate in these workshops. Is that correct? These career readiness workshops?
Yes. Usually it was just focused on YouthForce teens, but we opened it up to all of King County.
Great. So how can people get connected if they have teens in their own lives that they might want to get connected?
It's a great question. You can email youthforce@positiveplace.org, and that is our regular email, and then we can connect you with the workshops that'll be happening. Carissa just started putting together what the calendar is going to look like, and we're trying to do once a month. So every month have them the resume, the job search, and there was one more. I think it was the interview one as well. So offering those at least once a month to everyone.
Great, wonderful. And Caroline, thank you so much for the question and your longtime support of these teen programs, both in Federal Way and, you know, across the whole county now. We really appreciate your partnership. I had another question come up here, and I wanted to draw the connection that actually the Youth of the Year program as well, the teens walk away from that, Trey, with their own package of tangibles that they're taking with them, their resume and these essays and things like that. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Trey?
Yeah, so I mean, the Youth of the Year process, the kind of packet, and what we ask is honestly a lot from kids. So kudos to them for doing that. It is 3 essays they have to write, a full resume and cover letter, a copy of their transcripts, 2 letters of recommendation, a short answer sheet with some, you know, kind of personal statements and stuff like that. And you know, it's a lot of work to be doing as usually juniors or seniors when they're still in school. But, you know, these, when it's finished, you know, we also offer a mock interview practice as well as kind of like a, you know, a speech coaching and a chance to perfect or improve your speaking abilities. And it's a lot to ask and a lot to do, but I working with the kids I worked with in the past, it's always something that they benefited and gained from. Even just having that resume is so helpful to just have that resume done, and the experience of writing the cover letter, which a lot of high schoolers haven't ever done before, is just a great resource and tool. You know, another thing that we don't talk about a lot, and it's not a huge deal, but they get some clothes, which if you look good, you feel good, you present good, and you know, just getting this chance for some of these kids to go out, and normally we take them shopping and they pick out this cool outfit, and then just to feel good is so impactful for these kids. So there's really a lot that they're able to get through Youth of the Year.
Well, tell us a little bit more. What's that arrangement? Why clothes? How do they get clothes?
So we partner with Bruce Michael Imaging Consulting, and he works with us to kind of meet with these kids, and the college scholarship. Yes, thank you, Jamie. That one's very important too. But you know, just a lot of these times it's important to have a suit or a nice comfortable outfit that is professional. A lot of these kids don't have that, and just getting that something that fits them, fits their body, is something they got to pick out and they're comfortable and confident. And you know, we all know that if you're wearing something you're comfortable and you're going to feel more confident, you're going to feel more calm and ready for all of these kind of big things. So kind of giving that to a senior and be like, okay, now you have an outfit, you can wear it to an interview and you're going to feel good about it. It's so important to a lot of these kids.
That's great. Well, we'll look forward to the virtual Youth of the Year on February 27th, seeing what kind of outfits all the participants picked out. That's great. Any more questions for Trey and Melissa?
Melissa, I just wanted to share a quote from one of our youth over the summer from her internship. Let me just start off by saying this internship was really fun, eye-opening, and full of experience. Sadly, this is my last year doing an internship at YouthForce, as I am a senior and soon going to college. Exciting, I know, But I have to say, Boys and Girls Club is more than a community. They're a family. When I did it my first year and this year, I felt loved, welcomed, and supported. They treated me with respect and always cheered me up when I'm down. I can say that Boys and Girls Club was the best work experience ever, and I really enjoyed being an intern there. And I just think that just sums up Boys and Girls Club YouthForce, like the whole picture. And so obviously she's been with YouthForce for a little bit, so it wasn't her first internship, but it's nice to see that the impact that everyone has.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing. That was a surprise. I didn't know we were going to get to hear that great story today. Thanks, Melissa. Melissa, in hearing it, though, I have one more question that is kind of central to the conversation that the entire community has been having this year. We're experiencing this reckoning around racial justice. And of course, the Boys and Girls Clubs is we have a huge program set to make sure that we're focused on those who need us most. Can you talk to us about the racial and demographic makeup of the YouthForce participants? And maybe if there's a gap, is there a group of young people we would like to do a better job reaching? And maybe this group has some ideas around that.
Yeah, so specifically in our program, YouthForce, we serve 90% youth of color and mostly from South King County. And so as far as the gap, it's really just having the access to resources and having the ability to be able to, like Trey said, making sure if they need clothing, right, for their internship. It's so important that they have access to that. Making sure if they need the technology to do a virtual internship, that again, they have access to that. And so that's something that my team and I have been really working hard this year, making sure that they do have that access. And where can we get this, where can we get these resources? So that's one way of helping. I think also something to just sort of focus on a little bit is that it's not just like we have really shifted from trying to focus on more career stuff, and really because of COVID, due to COVID, we have had to shift to the more of the basic needs category for a lot of our youth this year, right? Because a lot of the parents are without jobs, and a lot of them are struggling just to make ends meet. So we've been helping a lot with housing and rental assistance and technology and cell phones and household items like hygiene products, support with the virtual school learning, helping them submit assignments online. And so just those are the types of things that we are struggling with right now. So we're trying to make sure that we can meet those needs, but as well as focus on making sure that we can get the career readiness aspect in there as well. But we all know that youth are not going to focus if their basic needs are not met.
Is that something you're experiencing as well, Trey?
Yes. The site I work at right now, we don't have a huge population of teens right now, but about 90% of them are experiencing homelessness or transitional housing right now. And so making sure those basic needs are being met in the teen center I specifically work in is so important to me right now, that they're able to access the internet and access all of these things that, I know that if they're not here, the chances are they're not logging into school. And so having them here is so important, that they have a space where they feel comfortable, that they have food that we provide them, that they have to eat. And just having those kind of basic needs met is letting them be in school all day and be able to participate, which feels so impactful and important to me.
Wow, that is astonishing, Trey. And it reminds me of last summer when we surveyed our club parents to find out, what they might need going into the fall and the new school year, and certainly food security and being able to have a safe place for their kids to be all day, getting support for school. And then that third rung was definitely, food security. So I hear that. But at your site, that's a pretty high percentage of youth experiencing homelessness. How are those youth and families getting connected to the club? How are they getting connected?
So the majority of the ones that are serving here are coming through Mary's Place homeless shelter in downtown Seattle. And I think the majority of them, they had a great caseworker there who reached out to us and said, hey, we have some teens who are needing a place to be. Can you help us find somewhere? And we of course. And so We've got them all signed up and ready to connect and engaging in school. If you guys can see my schedule of when all the classes are, it's intense. Making sure everyone's in their classes, but it's definitely worth it for these kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Wow. Okay. Well, if there are no last burning questions, if you have a burning question and you were a little bit shy to come off mute, we're going to stay on the line for just a second. So feel free to stay on with us. But really, thank you so much for joining us. This is part of a 3-part series that we're doing to help our community better understand the impact that you're making when you make a gift to the Boys and Girls Clubs or become a partner with your local neighborhood club. So we're really happy to have you all with us here today. I have that link for the event coming up on January the 12th, and I'll follow up with you all again later this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.